Hey everybody, welcome to this special of Going the Distance, the Linkin Park concert review. So here's my t-shirt. It was great to be there last night, be in the crowd, see the band live, hear the songs that I've been singing for the past 25 years up there on stage. Hear them sing it back and us sing it to them. Yes, it would have been great if Chester was there, but he was there in spirit, and I know everybody thought that was in that venue thought the same thing. He was there in spirit, and he was watching over us, and he was singing right along with us, and he was proud of the band getting back out there and just doing what they're doing. But before I get to Linkin Park, we need to talk about Grandson, the opening act. So we get there, get seated. Grandson came out. I think it was a little after 7:30, like 7:45, maybe even 8 o'clock, and he played for about 30 minutes, sang 9 songs, and I don't really know much about him. I just know that he's a Canadian singer, songwriter, rapper. These were songs last night that I had never heard before, but they sounded kind of protesty, like Rage Against the Machine. I call them a protest band, so that's kind of what I thought Grandson was. He sang a Bob Dylan song plus 8 of his own songs. And as it went on, I felt like his stage presence got better, but he was just too, I'm going to say, inexperienced. And it sounded like he had been around for a while, but he should have known how to. He didn't really interact with the crowd like I thought he should. But he did his set. Light show was great. Went off. And then about 9 o'clock, Linkin Park came on. Now, this was good because at like, I want to say 20 minutes, 25, maybe 25, 20 minutes, there was a clock that came on up there, and it was the countdown, and it was a countdown to 9 o'clock when Linkin Park was going to come out. Now, when they came out, the venue went dark, as it always does in a concert, and there was a light streamed from the ceiling, and it went from ceiling to floor, and it had this futuristic type. I want to say plasma because that's what the cover of the From Zero album cover is, and it was just like a plasma type thing, and it was really cool and futuristic. And they had versions of, I want to say, Iridescent, which was a song from A Thousand Suns. Actually, one of my favorites. In fact, it was from the Transformer soundtrack. So they came out and they had their futuristic stuff. And then they came in, and that was the beginning riffs of Somewhere I Belong. So Somewhere I Belong was the official first song, which, come on, y'all, how's that any better? To start out the concert with Somewhere I Belong. I was getting ahead of myself with One Step Closer. But then they played Lying for You. So they did 2 songs back to back from Medora. And it was great. The crowd loved it. The crowd got into it. And then Crawling came out. Was the 3rd song. And that right there, y'all, the crowd just, it was amazing. They started playing, and instead of Emily and Mike singing the song to start out with, Emily held the microphone out for us to sing to her. And that was like us singing Chester's part, which I think is only fitting because Crawling had a special meaning for Chester, and it was a harder song for him to sing, just not because of the vocals, but because of the emotion it brought out when he wrote the song. And it happens to be one of my favorite songs from them. In fact, we'll get to my favorite song in a minute. They sang 27 songs, but yesterday was Emily's birthday, so we sang Happy Birthday to her. Then they played New Divide, which was the song from Transformers, and that was just amazing. The vocals were great, and it just brought back all these memories, and the crowd loved it. And then they played the Emptiness Machine, which was the first new song, the first new single from Zero, where we were introduced to Emily. And it was great. Um, the crowd really received it well. I was afraid that the crowd was going to be like, "Oh, really? You know, you're going to start doing all these new songs." But it's the From Zero World Tour, so they have to put some new songs in there. So the Emptiness Machine they played, and they looked like they were having fun doing it. And then they had this they broke it down into acts. So now we're moving into Act 2. And this is what they call the Creation Intro B, which was more of Iridescent, which is one of my favorite songs from the A Thousand Suns album. And then they fed into the Catalyst, which was the first single from A Thousand Suns. And that was a good song. That was A Thousand Suns album was when they were experimenting. This was a song, or this was an album where they just wrote the songs and then just went in and recorded them. Because in the writing process, I've heard from songwriters like Rob Thomas and Mike and Chester that they go through this not agonizing, but these rewrites. And A Thousand Suns was where they didn't rewrite anything, and they just what they wrote down is what you saw. And then the Catalyst came out, and they did good. And then Burn It Down came out, and that's when everybody just started singing, started rocking, and they had been rocking from the beginning, but there was, the crowd's loosening up, getting more into it. And then they played Up From the Bottom, which was a song from the new album. They had Emily on guitar, and it was received well. And then they played the intro to a Fort Minor song, Where'd You Go? And if y'all don't know, Fort Minor is the rap side project from Mike Shinoda. So when Linkin Park's not doing their thing, he'll go off and he'll do Fort Minor stuff. Well, Fort Minor's only released one album to date that, was available to buy. Everything, he's released singles, and he is Fort Minor. It's not like him and a bunch of other people. It's Mike Shinoda is Fort Minor. He has all these other guests come on that contribute to him, but he's the actual band, the actual mastermind behind it. So that was good. Him and Emily did a duet with that, and it was just the beginning part and the chorus. It wasn't the whole song, so that was good. And then they played Waiting for the End, which was another song from A Thousand Suns. And it's a great song, but it talks about, waiting for the end of life and the end of the heartache and everything. So it's kind of a sad song, but it was good to hear live. Has a good beat to it, and they had clips from the music video up on the screen, so I thought that was pretty amazing. And then Castle of Glass was from their Living Things album. So what they're trying to do is sing songs from every album. I think the only album they didn't do any music from was One More Light, and I can kind of see that because that was Chester's last album, and that holds a special place in everybody's heart because that was Chester's last album. But they wanted to get out there, they wanted to start new. That's where From Zero came from. So then Castle of Glass was good, and then they moved into Two-Face, which was another new song. So they're incorporating more new songs into their sets. So Two-Face was good. It was released as a single. I think it was the second or third single from the From Zero album, and the crowd really received it well. Emily's vocals were good, and she can scream. She can scream. Although she wasn't all over the stage with these songs, she just kind of stood in one spot and sang the songs. And if she had to scream, she'd get up, put her foot up on the system and do this and just scream. in the songs, which I thought was good. I wish she had been around the stage more, but she interacted with the crowd, and actually went out in the crowd like Mike went out in the crowd. So after Two-Faced, Mr. Hahn had his solo, and I love Mr. Hahn's solos. Mr. Hahn is the DJ for Linkin Park, so he came out there and he did his scratching on the album or on the records. And Colin, who's a guitarist, they added because one of the members didn't return from the hiatus, was out there playing. They sounded great, and it was good to hear Mr. Hahn live. Then they did Empty Spaces, which is kind of a bridge between everything. And then they came out and did a song called When They Come For Me. And it was part When They Come For Me plus Remember the Name from Fort Minor, which I thought was good because Remember the Name is one of Fort Minor's biggest singles. In fact, it was their first single. And that was well received, and Mike kind of talks about himself in that song. And then When They Come For Me is just a good upbeat kind of hip hop type song. So that showcased Mike's rap ability, which is just second to none. In fact, it's funny because when you're looking at stuff on the computer and they show Mike, it says a better rapper than than most of the rappers today. Rapper of a rock band who's a better rapper than the rappers today is what it says. And I have to agree with that. I sing along with him. I can keep up with him. And that's how I gained my rap skill. So, yesterday happened to be Emily's birthday, and what a great way to spend her birthday than on tour in Raleigh with North Carolinians. So, we sang Happy Birthday to her, which she appreciated. She had on these glasses with the birthday cake on either lens, and we sang Happy Birthday to her. They brought out a cake, and she was really surprised. But as the concert, she couldn't get all emotional about it because she still had to keep it together for the concert. And y'all, it was hard for me to keep it together last night because I wanted to lose it when they came out, but I wanted to play it cool and play it, low key. But inside, I'm just like. But anyway, so then they played another new song, which on the album From Zero, they call it IGEIH, which is I Give You Everything I Have. And that's a song like Blackout from the A Thousand Suns album, where it's more of a hardcore screaming type of song. And, I sang right along with it. That's why my throat's a little sore today. But then, y'all, this is about when I lost it right here because we're down to song 17, and it happens to be my favorite Linkin Park song of all in One Step Closer. Don't ask me why it's my favorite song, but it is my absolute, hands down, ask me what my favorite Linkin Park song is. This is One Step Closer. And I was a little iffy about them playing it because I thought, again, you can hear the emotion in Chester's voice when he sings that song. How's it going to be with somebody else? Well, they brought Grandson out. So he, like I said earlier, was kind of a rebellious type thing. So this song, bringing him out on this song was right up his alley. So they come out and the stage is red, and it just, he brought the emotion, everybody brought the emotion. You could just see they were having a good time. But they still wanted to, feel, they wanted you to feel what they were feeling. And that's what I did. And I loved it. I sang every song, and I was up, just singing and screaming, and couldn't really jump because I had people around me, but it's all good. I can, it's not the type of song to jump to, but, I was banging my head and just getting into it because I don't know what it is about that song, but you could just feel it. And then they moved into all that was Act 2. And then we move into Act 3. So they kind of had a break where they went off stage and got some water and all that. Came back and played Lost. Now, Lost is... I don't know how I feel about them playing Lost, because this was an unreleased track from the Medora album. And they released it on the Medora 20th anniversary tour, or 20th anniversary box set. This was a song that they said held special meaning to the band, because this song almost made it on the Medora album. It was actually between... the choices were Lost and Numb. Well, Numb outweighed Lost. So Numb became the last song on the Medora album, and Lost was, we thought Lost forever. But this was the last song that they released that had Chester's vocals on it. Well, no, they had Friendly Fire. But this was one of the last songs that they released with Chester's vocals. And it didn't feel right for them to have one of Chester's last vocal songs released to us as the, in the single. But it was good to hear it live, and I kind of saw Mike having those memories come back. And then they came in and played a song. Now, how funny is this? They played a new song called Stained. And it's funny because I'm listening to the From Zero album on Spotify right now, and Stained is actually playing on my TV right now. But it's a very emotional song about relationships and being stained in the relationship is how I take it. I need to listen to it a little bit harder, but the first time I heard it, she talks about you're stained. So yeah. So then that we move on, and they played What I've Done. And that, that's from Minutes to Midnight. So they, like I said, incorporated songs from almost every album in there. Not One More Light, and not The Hunting Party. Neither one of those albums got a cut on the playlist. But What I've Done was a good way to kind of calm down after Stained, because then you can kind of get your mind right again. And then they moved into Act 4. So they went off stage, had a little bit of a break, and then came back and played Overflow, another new song. So see what I'm saying? See how they're incorporating more new songs in the playlist? And Overflow was good, and they actually did an extended intro with the song One by Metallica, which I thought was good, which I thought was pretty good. I was just in the moment. It's like, I recognize that, but I don't quite understand, couldn't quite place where I had heard that. But it was One from Metallica. And then they move in. So a little backstory. So like I said, with Lost, it was between Lost and Numb. Well, Numb outweighed Lost. So Numb is the next song they played. But what they did is, after Overflow, they fed into Mike, doing the version with Jay-Z with Numb Encore. So he did his Do You Want to Encore? Do You Want More? And just did that rapping part. And then after Emily sang her What the Hell Are You Waiting For? Then that was all they did from Encore, and the rest of the song was Numb. And the crowd went wild, y'all. Now, granted, this is one of their most famous songs. So, in fact, to look back on it, in the end and Numb, if you ask people what songs they know, those are the two songs they're going to come up with. In the End and Numb. Well, the crowd just went wild when Numb came on. And Mike was back at the keyboard. In fact, he was back at the keyboard most of the night. He never came to the front of the stage. He was kind of in the background, and Emily kind of took center stage. I don't know if it was because it was her birthday or what it was. But then, but they played Numb, and of course, in the music video, if you've seen the music video, Mike's on the piano. So this was Mike on the keyboard back there doing the keyboard. And then, again, as I just said, two of their most famous songs were Numb and In the End. And then they played In the End. And y'all, the whole arena was singing that song. And one thing I remember about this song recently was when I went and saw Stained and Breaking Benjamin last year, the bumper music, while we were waiting for Stained to come out, was In the End. And the whole amphitheater at where I saw them sang In the End. While I sang along, everybody was singing along, rapping to Mike, singing to Emily, and I sang both parts last night. So, I was a little tired last night after the concert. But In the End was just a song I'd been listening to for 25 years, and I get to hear it live, and it's just a once in a lifetime to hear. And then they played Faint, and it was so funny because right before Faint, in one of their breaks, I thought, y'all haven't played Faint yet, and if you're playing all these new songs, please play Faint, as an older song. But this was kind of a not a bridge, but actually I would say from back at Numb, this was a span of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 songs that they sang that were older songs. So this is when the crowd really got into it, had gotten really loose, and were waiting for these songs. In fact, I think they got loose by one step closer, because when that came out, the crowd was into it, and we were ready to just get it all out. And then Faint came out, and we got more of it out, and it just brings back all these memories. And then after Faint, then they did the extended outro, which was them leaving the stage, getting ready, doing the encore. And then they did the last little bit of Iridescent with that. So it was the Resolution intro B. And this was entering back onto the stage. And then when they came back out, now we were in Raleigh, and if you guys are sports fans, y'all know the hockey playoffs are going on, and the Carolina Hurricanes play in the arena where I was last night. So Emily and Mike come out, and they've got Hurricane jerseys on with their last names on the back, and on the arms, on the shoulders, actually it says LP in the emblem like I showed y'all earlier. And then on the sleeves it said 25, and I guess that meant 25 years of Linkin Park, is what I could figure. So they come out and they play Paper Cut. Well, again, the crowd loves this because this was the Hybrid Theory, song. This was almost the song that got one of the first songs to get them started. In fact, I think it was In the End was the first one to really put them on the map. And then Crawling and Paper Cut came out, and everybody, you never heard of anything like that, because Mike's rapping, Chester's singing, and it was just like that. Now this was where Mike came out on stage, and he was up there rapping and going across the stage back and forth, and interacting more with the crowd. I thought last night he kind of sat back on a lot of the songs, but around Paper Cut, he got out there and he was rapping, and he was, doing his Mike stuff. And then they played From the Inside, which was from Medora, and this was one of the last older songs they sang. Now they ended their song with an old song, but not as Medora. They ended with a Minutes to Midnight. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But when they played From the Inside, which was a surprise to me, I didn't know what they were going to play. I almost thought it was going to be a newer song. But then, hearing From the Inside is just a song that, has followed me through my life. And just to sing it, hear it, it was emotional for me. It was emotional to hear all these older songs because, I have connections with these songs, as I'm sure all of y'all that are Linkin Park fans do. Y'all have connections with this. Well, from the inside, that emotion comes out. It's just raw, and it's just, it's just something you've never experienced. And then the last new song they played was "Heavy as the Crown," which was I think it was the second single from the From Zero album. So it was something they had to put in the show. And that's a heavy song. It's a lot like I can compare it to an older Linkin Park song, just as an Emily vocal. But it has the emotion, it has the scream, it has the rawness of everything. And then they kind of took a break, not break, but like switched instruments out and got set for the next song. And then Mike comes on and says, "Y'all, this is our last song. Thank you guys for being so great. I know it's been a minute since we've been here, but hopefully it's not going to be a minute till we come back." And that's when they started playing "Bleed It Out." And that's been a staple. That's been their closing song since Minutes to Midnight came out. Like, "Burn It to the Ground" is Nickelback's closing song since they released Dark Horse. "Bleed It Out's been Linkin Park's closing song since Minutes to Midnight. And it's so great because this is where they intertwine some older Linkin Park into that song. And so they make it fun, and they make it like, we're not just going to leave you with one song. We're going to actually take you on a journey, and we're going to take you to, like, you're here, or you're here, and we're going to take you to here, or you're here, and we're going to take you to here. And that's what they did. We were here, and they took us to here, or even here. Because they started playing "Bleed It Out," and they played the first single, or they played the first verse. They did a little bit of the bridge, and then they broke it in, and then Mike came out and broke out "A Place for My Head." So, that's a hybrid theory song, and it's a hardcore rock. It kind of goes with "Bleed It Out." So for them to intertwine those two together was just amazing. And to hear "A Place for My Head," now I've seen them sing that song like on Live in Texas, and just the raw emotion that they have during that song and they didn't go for the screaming part, but that Mike did his rap part of "A Place for My Head" for that, and it just, the first verse is what they did, and then fed into "Bleed It Out" again, and then it was great. They were grateful, they were appreciative, and they connected with the crowd like a band should. And would I go see him again? In a heartbeat, I'd go see him again. Because, this is something, and I know what y'all are going to say. But it's not Chester. And no, it's not Chester. And Emily is never going to be Chester. And nobody can replace Chester. Whatever Linkin Park did with the new singer, they were never going to replace Chester. Chester's irreplaceable. But you have to remember, yes, Linkin Park of old was Chester. This is Linkin Park of new. And yet, her singing Chester's songs, was hard for me last night. But in the end, yeah, see what I did there? But in the end, you have to look at it as this is a new beginning, and you're not going to take out Chester's songs in a new set because he's gone. You need to remember him by singing those songs live and, just getting out there. And that's what I tried to remember. Yes, it was hard, but, I also remembered that, this is the new version. And this is Linkin Park moving forward. And so now all of Linkin Park's out, like one more, all of Linkin Park's albums have a special place in my heart. But One More Light and now From Zero have a more special place because One More Light was Chester's last album, and From Zero was the album I went and saw Linkin Park in concert with. So yeah, y'all might not agree, and if y'all have heard Linkin Park's new stuff and want to have y'all's thoughts on Emily, the new lead singer, drop it in the comments. Like I said, I'd definitely go see him again. I'd definitely rock out to him. I rock out to him all the time anyway. So, you know, just seeing all those songs live was like, I got emotional, y'all. I'm not even going to lie. I got emotional. I didn't cry. It wasn't anything like that, but it was just like, I can't believe after 25 years I'm actually listening to these songs, and these songs that I've heard on the radio, and the songs that I've sung to, and the songs that kind of shaped my, when I was that age. I've been singing these songs for so long that it's just a part of me now. And I know on here, on these videos, you'll hear me sing a little bit from the songs if I feel the need when I'm talking about them. And I thought about that last night too. I thought, when I'm doing these videos, if I can't think of something with you guys and I'm trying to relay it, but I know the lyrics, I'll sing the lyrics until I get to them just to get them right. And that's how I felt last night. I thought, I'm not singing them to get them right. I'm actually singing them to sing them with the crowd, making Chester proud. And I hope we did, Chester. I hope we made you proud last night, buddy. We miss you. And I felt like, this was a gathering of people who just missed Chester but loved the band and wanted to see the band continue. And I want to see the band continue. In fact, after last night, I was coming around. I wasn't real sold on new lead singer because I hadn't, really heard. But now that I've heard her live and heard her, interact, she's good, y'all. Give her a chance. And that's what I'm going to say. Give her a chance because I was in y'all's shoes. No, it's not the old Linkin Park. And it will never be the old Linkin Park. But this is the new Linkin Park. So you need to think of this as Linkin Park 2.0. People won't listen to him anymore because there is no Chester. And I was there. Trust me, I was there. I had that image. But I'm not going to turn my back on a group that I've listened to for 25 years. Just because, I don't agree. At first I didn't agree. Well, now I agree. And this is Linkin Park 2.0. So look at it like that. Look at it as Linkin Park 2.0 and don't look at the past. Yes, the memories are there. Chester will always be there, and Chester will always have a place in all our hearts. But let's make room for the new Linkin Park too, because they're good, y'all. The From Zero album is a good album. I think in my review I gave it a 9 out of 10, and that was because I hadn't heard everything. Well, now that I've heard it, I still give it that 9 out of 10, but I look at it in a completely different light now. So I want you guys to go out. In fact, on Spotify, they actually have the set list, playlist for the From Zero World Tour. So go out there, listen to that playlist. I've got it on my Spotify. I made a playlist on my Spotify and on YouTube of my concert. And let me know what you guys think. I love the concert. I love Linkin Park. I always will. Nothing's going to change that. But what are you guys' thoughts on Linkin Park? Drop it in the comments. Drop a like on this video. And let me know what you guys think. So thank you guys for listening. And I will see you guys later. God bless. Love y'all.